Myself with all the belts, and I get really excited. The fans are gonna be the true winners of the night, because what I hope is that they see a great fight and they see the event that they deserve to see. And for all those that are overlooking me, get ready, because I'm gonna show them who I am.
World champion William Skull from Cuba warns his critics not to underestimate him, stating that he is ready to silence everyone. Skull is set to face Canelo on May 3rd, and with unwavering determination, he is confident in his ability to prevail. While Canelo boasts an extensive history of battles, Skull chooses not to dwell on the past. Instead, he is fully focused on his preparation for the upcoming fight, where he aims to deliver his absolute best performance.
La verdad que ya pasó mucho tiempo, ¿no? Y no puedo fijarme en la pelea de hace 13 años atrás con el Irán de Lara, pero no, uno primeramente estamos físicamente bien preparados, que es uno de los factores fundamentales para esta pelea, la física, y no, y todos sabemos que el boxeo cubano es lindo con las piernas.
Meanwhile, Canelo is highly ranked in the world of boxing, having faced numerous top fighters and earned the WBC, WBA, and WBO super middleweight titles. In contrast, William Skull, a rising star from Cuba, holds the IBF super middleweight championship and is making his way into this high-profile fight. While Skull's Cuban fighting style may be seen as a challenge by many, Canelo views it as no cause for concern. He believes his extensive experience, having faced a wide range of styles throughout his career, gives him the advantage in dealing with any opponent.
Not just for Lara, for everybody. I have the experience to fight every style, everybody there, all the best fighters out there. So I'm gonna put my talent, my skills, and that's it.
As discussions continue about whether William Skull could pull off the upset, especially considering Canelo's significant size advantage, the odds seem stacked against him. Canelo, the undisputed king of boxing, carries the weight of recognition backed by his vast experience and proven expertise. In contrast, Skull doesn't have any major names on his resume to suggest he can challenge Canelo's dominance. Teddy Atlas recently shared his thoughts on the matchup, pointing out the stark differences between the two fighters and emphasizing the gap in their credentials.
She gave him a 4-fight deal, starts in May, with the fighter you just mentioned, William Skull, the #1, he's a, whatever, it's going to be for, he's a champion, he's got one of the belts, so it's going to be for an undisputed 168-pound title, I guess, right?
Yeah, he has the IBF belt he won against Vladimir Shishkin, which was vacant after Canelo was stripped of that belt.
He's 23-0, he's 32 years old, he's got 9 knockouts.
Teddy also shared his thoughts on the 4-fight deal that Canelo signed with Turki Al-Sheikh. It's no secret that Canelo has always been motivated by lucrative opportunities, and this deal is no exception. As discussions swirl about how much Canelo stands to earn, many are curious about the financial details of this latest arrangement. Teddy, relying on information from his sources, revealed the amount Canelo is reportedly being paid for this fight.
4-fight deal. We don't know the exact monies, but I put out there that I've heard, and again, I'm saying I just heard, neighborhood. It could be anywhere from 100 to 150 million a fight. That's a lot of De Niro. It's a lot of De Niro.
Taking the deal into consideration, Teddy didn't hold back with his criticism of Canelo. According to Teddy, Canelo is being overpaid for the upcoming fight with William Skull. While expressing his opinion, he acknowledged Turki Al-Sheikh's efforts in promoting the sport and putting together high-profile fights. However, Teddy believes that in this case, Al-Sheikh may have made a significant mistake by overpaying Canelo for a fight with Skull, a fighter he feels doesn't have the resume to withstand Canelo's power.
He's getting awfully overpaid for the Skull fight. That's what I do know. And again, I'm not trying to rain on any parade. I love what Turki Al-Sheikh's doing for the sport. I've said that. I'm not going to say it no more. I'm just saying that Canelo's pretty smart. He's pretty good in the ring, and he's pretty good businessman. I don't think he gets enough credit for being the businessman he is, because he knows how to make money. Cinnamon knows how to make money, besides counterpunching and everything else. And at the end of the day, I saw William Skull. I'm not gonna go into it heavy. He is tremendously overpaid. Tremendously being overpaid for that fight.
Meanwhile, many figures in the boxing community have criticized Canelo for choosing to fight William Skull. Oscar De La Hoya, expressing his thoughts, didn't hold back in blasting Canelo. He found it odd that Canelo would avoid major matchups like Benavidez and Crawford, only to face a fighter with a less impressive resume like Skull. De La Hoya emphasized that Canelo should not be making such decisions, especially at the tail end of his career. He urged Canelo to give the boxing community the mega bouts that would truly showcase his skills at the highest level.
This, just scratching my head. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know, that's all I do all night is scratch my head. Canelo, what are you doing? Look, people want to see the big fights. They want to see the big fights. They want to see Benavidez. That's it. They want to see, you know, to a certain extent, they want to see Crawford. Canelo, the big mega events. So, especially towards the end of your career. Yeah. I mean, this is the fourth quarter of Canelo's career, so might as well give us the big fights. But look, it's his career, it's his choices. 10, 15 years from now, are we gonna say you ducked Benavidez, or you gave us a great fight with Benavidez? That's the question.
On the other hand, Showbiz the Adult weighed in on this matchup and backed Canelo for choosing to fight William Skull. He stressed that, in this situation, the identity of Canelo's next opponent matters greatly. With Canelo potentially facing Crawford after reclaiming his undisputed title, it would undoubtedly set the stage for the highest stakes in boxing. Showbiz speculated on how these upcoming fights with Canelo could unfold, emphasizing that the outcomes would significantly impact the history of the sport. He suggested that should Canelo emerge victorious and then take on Crawford, it could reshape the landscape of boxing, solidifying Canelo's legacy even further and creating a new chapter in the sport's history.
Canelo taking on William Skull, I don't mind, since he signed a 4-fight deal and the anticipated fight that the boxing fans want in Terrence Bud Crawford is next. Fine. Plus, that means that Canelo versus Crawford is for undisputed, which I don't really value that as much anymore. You see how easily fighters are stripped and stuff like that. You know, just so many different belts. I'm more so into the matchups than the belts, okay? But with that said, it's still a thing. You can't say undisputed isn't a thing. As a boxing fan, I know it's a thing. So to fight William Skull, recapture undisputed, and then fight Terrence Crawford, Crawford fights Canelo for undisputed as he jumps up practically 3 weight classes at 38 years old, hit the Tyson bell, versus the undisputed champion in Canelo Alvarez, just makes it a higher stake fight. And if Terrence Crawford wins, that's just holy shnikes, okay? Holy shishkin.
While there are several strong opponents lined up for Canelo, his decision to choose William Skull has raised significant concerns. Canelo recently explained his reasoning behind the choice, stating that fighting in Saudi Arabia has been a long-standing desire of his, and he is excited to embark on this new chapter of his career. He emphasized that his decision to fight William Skull was driven by his ambition to reclaim his status as the undisputed king of boxing once again. Canelo expressed that this opportunity aligns with his personal and professional goals, even though many believe there are more challenging opponents he could face.
For me, being a 2-time undisputed fighter is making history, right? And it's important to me being undisputed again. So, and being fighting in Saudi, for me, is a new chapter in my career. I feel motivated about that.
At the same time, his opponent, William Skull, is confident he can make history with this fight. He revealed that he had long anticipated this opportunity, sensing it would eventually come his way. After becoming the IBF champion on October 19th of last year, Skull had already started to expect this matchup. He went on to share the details of how the deal came together, expressing his excitement and belief that fighting Canelo would be a career-defining moment. Skull is determined to make history, confidently stating that this fight represents not just a huge challenge, but a chance to rewrite his legacy and establish himself as one of the sport's elite.
Asombroso, ¿no? Y espantante. Mi hermana me llamó a las 3 de la mañana, 4 de la mañana, contento, y la verdad que me puse contento, no puedo dormir más, Pero la verdad que era algo que veníamos esperando también y nosotros estuvimos seguros que se iba a dar.
As questions continue to arise about William Skull, Showbiz the adult also shared his thoughts on the matchup. He admitted he wasn't familiar with Skull and noted that the fighter lacks a strong background in boxing. Showbiz speculated about Skull's power, asserting that there's nothing about him that stands out as making him a top-level fighter. While Skull is a Cuban fighter, Showbiz pointed out that the David Benavidez versus David Morrell fight was somewhat similar, with Morrell being Cuban as well. However, he argued that this doesn't necessarily suggest Skull will be able to show any sort of dominance against Canelo, especially when considering how the Benavidez-Morrell fight played out, where Morrell, despite being a Cuban fighter, was overwhelmed.
William Skull, and of course it jumps out at you that he's undefeated. Also jumps out that it doesn't seem like he has a lot of power. But then I look and I see that he's a Cuban fighter, and I immediately say, uh-oh, right? Because when I think of a Cuban fighter, Canelo Alvarez, I think of Lara. But that doesn't mean that William Skull is a Lara. It doesn't even mean that he's a slick fighter. We all saw Morrell versus David Benavidez, right? And it doesn't mean that he'll give him trouble. It doesn't even mean that he's a good fighter. 23-0, we all know undefeated doesn't mean you're a good fighter. And even if you are, it doesn't mean that you are a good op for Canelo Alvarez.
Moving ahead, on October 19th, 2024, William Skull defeated Vladimir Shishkin by unanimous decision in a 12-round bout, claiming the vacant IBF super middleweight title. In an effort to assess Skull's fighting skills, Showbiz watched the fight and offered his opinion, stating that, in his view, Shishkin had actually won the fight. He went on to warn William Skull, suggesting that he could easily become Canelo's next victim in their upcoming bout.
Okay, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm gonna keep it a bean. Shishkin won that fight, and that's the Black Two Sugars. Who is William Skull? Canelo's next victim.
When it comes to fighting Canelo, many believe he will prove a real challenge for William Skull, with many wondering how Skull might pull off the upset of his career. However, Skull himself doesn't view it as an upset. Speaking about his preparations for the fight, he emphasized that both physically and mentally, he is pushing himself harder than ever to be in the best shape possible before stepping into the ring with Canelo. He brushed off concerns, stressing that the build-up, anticipation, and motivation for this fight are far more important than anything else. Skull has been waiting for this opportunity for almost 3 years, and he's determined to make the most of it.
I feel mentally sharp and physically I'm in top shape because we have been working towards this fight for years now. I've been waiting for it for like 3 years now, so you can bet I'm ready.
Highlighting these factors, it is quite evident that Skull is not underestimating Canelo Alvarez. He acknowledges that Canelo is a master of his craft and recognizes him as an established and formidable fighter. Reflecting on Canelo's capabilities, Skull stated that while he sees Canelo's strengths, he will look for any weaknesses inside the ring. However, he assured that once they step into the ring, he will handle everything. Despite being fully aware of Canelo's dominance, Skull is confident that he will break through Canelo's supremacy and emerge victorious when the fight is over.
Canelo is a master of his craft, someone that's already established, and his weaknesses, I'm gonna have to figure them out inside the ring. What I know so far, obviously I can't tell you right now, but in the end, I know what my strategy is gonna be, and that's the important thing.
While William Skull versus Canelo fight is a major event, much of the attention is on a potential showdown between Canelo and Terrence Crawford. However, Skull shared his thoughts on the situation, clarifying that he doesn't feel disrespected or surprised by the lack of focus on him, having been overlooked numerous times throughout his career, especially with his experience fighting in multiple countries. Skull explained that it's something he has come to expect. He pointed out that people often underestimate him before the fight, but once he's in the ring, he makes sure to silence the doubters. With confidence, Skull stated that the world would be surprised by the outcome once the fight is over.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm used to being overlooked. I've fought in 4 different countries, and people have thought less of me at times, and then I've shut them up. So this is not going to be any different. I'm going to shut everybody up, and you guys might see an upset in May, and you may have a surprise or two in your hands.
On the other hand, Juan Manuel Marquez believes William Skull will be an easy opponent for Canelo Alvarez. Sharing his thoughts, Marquez argued that Skull lacks the necessary skills and a notable professional resume to pose a serious threat. He went further, criticizing Skull by stating that he's essentially a non-factor in the boxing world. Marquez emphasized that while Skull may have earned a title, he doesn't have the experience or pedigree to compete at the elite level that Canelo operates at. According to Marquez, it's a matchup that doesn't excite him, as he believes Canelo will have little trouble proving his dominance in the ring.
Juan, tell me your opinion on Canelo versus William Skull. That just got official.
I don't know what's going to happen, but William Skull is not nobody. He's nobody in the sport of boxing.
Echoing his sentiments, former Italian-American professional boxer Paulie Malignaggi also weighed in on this matchup, pointing out that the issue isn't just about Skull, but rather about the sanctioning bodies that approve these matchups. He blasted the management of these fights, criticizing the lack of proper rules for selecting the right mandatory challenger for Canelo. Malignaggi specifically mentioned that David Benavidez would have been the ideal opponent, but got overlooked in the process.
I mean, the thing about these sanctioning bodies is you don't quite know how, when, or where they're going to enforce the rules, or if they enforce them even. In this situation, we've kind of been hearing grumblings that he'd be stripped. I mean, it's not really about Skull. He's not really a big known fighter. It's more so just about the principle of it. This probably should have happened in the instance of David Benavidez being the mandatory, but it wasn't.
While Paulie acknowledged the IBF for finally stepping up and hosting big bouts, he didn't hold back in criticizing Canelo, joking that he's the type of fighter who would even choose to fight an Uber driver if it was labeled as mandatory. He also expressed his support for mandatory fights, emphasizing that they are crucial at a time when big matchups are hard to come by. He applauded the IBF for securing the deal, recognizing their efforts in keeping the sport moving forward despite the lack of marquee fights.
So I credit the IBF more for just finally holding their ground and doing something. I mean, it was about time one of these sanctioning bodies did what they were supposed to do, you know? Because my issue is Canelo will randomly fight an Uber driver and say, oh, he was my mandatory, I had to fight him. Then when the mandatory is difficult, like David Benavidez, he'll make other reasons. And of course, one way or the other, he gets to call the shots. He's a big timer, I get it. Most popular fighter in boxing, I get it. But nonetheless, for me, it's not more about Skull. It's more about finally a little bit of movement in terms of the wheels starting to turn again, because there was a lot of monkey wrenches in the under 68-pound wheel at this point with the mandatories not being enforced and the big fights not being enforced.
Acknowledging the concerns, Canelo knows there's no Terrence Crawford fight unless he first takes care of William Skull, as he is no pushover. He's a world champion from Cuba, a rare achievement that not many Cubans reach in professional boxing. Think about that. He's part of an exclusive group of apex champions. While many Cubans excel in the amateurs, only a few make the leap to world champion status in the pros, and Skull is one of them. Skull takes on boxing star Canelo Alvarez on May 3rd in what promises to be the best Cinco de Mayo weekend ever for boxing. He comes across as well-spoken and a highly dedicated athlete, not someone to be underestimated. While it may seem like he's being overlooked, he won't be by Canelo. He said, honestly, it's not bad. It doesn't scare me. When you've managed to become a world champion, which is what I am today, by winning every fight put in front of me, I've always come out on top despite the difficulties and the people who underestimate me. And that wraps up today's discussion on the highly anticipated fight between Canelo Alvarez and William Skull. With so many opinions flying around, it's clear that this matchup has everyone talking, from legends like Oscar De La Hoya and Teddy Atlas to fighters like Mikey Garcia and Paulie Malignaggi. Whether you think Skull has what it takes to pull off the upset or believe Canelo is just too much for him, one thing's for sure, May 3rd is going to be a thrilling night for boxing. So what do you think? Will Skull rise to the occasion, or will Canelo prove why he's the undisputed champion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates as we count down to fight night. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.